State Director, Bishop's Pastoral Plan for Pro-Life Activities. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me in the back? Great.
And in the front.
And in the front?
Yeah.
The sides? Excellent. As John said, I've been asked to provide some background on the Health and Human Services, or HHS Mandate, and thereby explain what it is and what it isn't. First, I want to point out that while the HHS Mandate may be the primary reason for these rallies, it is by no means the only recent threat to religious liberty. In their statement on religious liberty, the U.S. Catholic bishops point out many other ways in which religious liberty is under attack. These include attempts to alter church structure and governance, discrimination against Catholic humanitarian and adoption services, and even the California universities denying student organization status to only one group, the Christian Legal Society, because it dared to require its leaders to be Christian and to abstain from sexual activity outside of marriage. The HHS mandate emanates from the federal health care law known as Obamacare, which requires all health care plans to cover quote-unquote preventive services for women without co-pays or any other cost sharing. Like many other controversial provisions of Obamacare, the law did not specify which preventive services would be included. It delegated that task to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. The Secretary, in turn, asked a panel from the Institute of Medicine, which, not surprisingly, included numerous Planned Parenthood board members, to identify these preventive services. Among the list of preventive services for women, the Institute on Medicine panel recommended female sterilization and all FDA-approved prescription contraceptives, which includes drugs that can cause abortions. The Secretary of HHS readily accepted the recommendations, making it clear that the Obama administration views pregnancy as a disease to be prevented with surgery and abortion-inducing drugs.
No way.
The Secretary of HHS not only accepted this recommendation, she adopted an incredibly narrow religious exemption for religious employers. That is unprecedented in federal or state law. Religious employers are exempt only if their purpose is to inculcate religious doctrine, and they hire and serve mainly people of their own faith. Most religious institutions providing health, educational, or charitable services to others have no protection. As the bishops have pointed out under this definition, Jesus and his disciples would not qualify as religious enough, since he healed the needy and regardless of religious affiliation and taught followers to do the same. Besides its unprecedented narrowing of what it means to be a religious employer, the Obama edict does not exempt religious insurers, schools with student health plans, families purchasing insurance, or businesses owned by people of faith who have religious or moral objections to providing and paying for such services. Unfortunately, despite strong and substantial opposition to this mandate and its unprecedented trampling of religious liberty, and direct assurances to Cardinal Dolan, President of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, President Obama issued his mandate without any changes on January 20th. Following a firestorm of protests by people of every faith and no faith, and both ends of the political spectrum, President Obama announced on February 10th accommodations to address of religious freedom. Now listen carefully. What most people don't realize is that the same day he spoke to the nation with his offer of an accommodation, his administration published the mandate in the Federal Register, thus making it law without any change. The President merely made a backhanded offer to address our concerns after the November election. This is the height of political cynicism. In the administration's attempt to camouflage its attack on religious liberty, it has tried to characterize this debate as one over women's rights and access to contraception. The Catholic bishops and numerous other religious leaders have convincingly pointed out the absurdity of this deception by explaining what this mandate really is about and is not about. This mandate is not about access to contraception, which is ubiquitous and inexpensive, even when it is not provided by the Church's hand and with the Church's funds. This is not about the religious freedom of Catholics only, as it's been stated already by our Protestant brethren, but also of those who recognize that their cherished beliefs may be next on the block. This is not about the bishops somehow banning contraception, since the U.S. Supreme Court took that issue off the table 2 generations ago. Indeed, this is not about the Church wanting to force anybody to do anything, but is about the federal government forcing the Church, consisting of its faithful and all but a few of its institutions, to act against Church teachings. This is not a matter of opposition to universal health care even, which has been a concern of the Catholic Bishops' Conference since 1919, virtually at its founding. This is not a fight we wanted or asked for, but one forced upon us by the Obama administration on its own timing. Finally, as it's been stated already, this is not a Republican or Democratic issue, a conservative or liberal issue. It is an American issue. So what is the mandate about? It's about an unwarranted government definition of religion. The mandate includes an unprecedented and extremely narrow definition of what HHS deems a religious employer deserving exemption. It is a mandate to act against our Church teachings. The exemption is not merely a government foray into internal Church governance. Rather, those deemed by HHS not to be religious employers will be forced by government to violate their own teachings within their very own institutions. The mandate is also a violation of personal civil rights. Individuals who in their daily lives strive constantly to act in accordance with their faith and moral values are afforded no conscience protection at all by this mandate. They too face a government mandate to aid in providing services contrary to those values, whether in their sponsoring of and payment for insurance as employers, their payment of insurance premiums as employees, or as insurers themselves, without even the semblance of an exception. I'll conclude with the words of Cardinal Timothy Dolan, again President of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. He said, "We did not ask for this fight, but we will not run from it."